The old psychiatric hospital stood atop the hill, its Victorian architecture decayed by time. It had been abandoned for decades, whispered about in hushed tones by the town's elders. They said it housed the broken, the lost, and the discarded, patients subjected to unspeakable experiments in the name of science. The teenagers had heard the rumors, of course, but to them, it was just another adventure, another thrill to chase. There were 5 of them. Jake, the leader, Tasha, the skeptic, Liam, the anxious one, Brooke, the daredevil, and Ethan, the quiet observer. Armed with flashlights, a few beers, and a phone for recording, they climbed through a rusted hole in the chain-link fence and approached the gaping entrance. The wooden doors hung open like the mouth of a yawning beast. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of mildew and decay. The remnants of hospital beds, shattered glass, and rusted gurneys lay scattered in the darkness. The overhead lights flickered sporadically, casting erratic shadows against the graffiti-stained walls. "This place is a dump," Tasha muttered, kicking a fallen clipboard. "Yeah, well, that's what makes it cool," Brooke shot back with a smirk. As they ventured deeper, they found an old operating theater. Rusted surgical instruments lay scattered, their edges dulled by time but still sinister in their presence. "Imagine the horrors that went down here," Liam said, shivering. Jake scoffed. "It's just a building. People let their imaginations run wild." As if in response, a flickering light in the hallway sparked violently, the wires above them crackling. In the brief luminescence, they saw something, or thought they did. A shape in the shadows, elongated and unnatural. "What was that?" Ethan asked, gripping his flashlight tighter. "Probably just our eyes playing tricks," Jake said, though he didn't sound as confident as before. They turned to leave, only to realize they weren't sure which way they had come. The hall seemed unfamiliar now, twisting corridors that all looked the same. Doors they were certain had been open were now closed, the broken glass on the floor rearranged. Then came the sound, a child's lullaby, haunting and slow. It drifted through the corridors, accompanied by the distant echo of laughter, soft, breathy, and wrong. "Who the hell is playing that?" Brooke whispered, her bravado slipping. Nobody answered. The music grew louder, the soft creaking of doors opening and closing punctuating the melody. "Let's get the hell out of here," Liam said, his breath shaky. They moved quickly now, the darkness pressing in around them. Their flashlights barely cut through the thick shadows. Every so often, one of them would catch a glimpse of movement in their peripheral vision. A fleeting figure, long and gaunt, limbs stretched unnaturally. The stink of rot filled the air, the kind of stench that made bile rise in the throat. Then, ahead, the main entrance. Relief flooded them, until they noticed the figure standing beneath the flickering fluorescent light. Its ribs protruded through tight, decayed skin, and what remained of a hospital gown clung in tatters to its body. Its elongated fingers twitched, and its head lolled to one side as if its neck had been broken. The air was thick with the smell of death, and as the light flickered, the creature seemed to move closer without ever truly stepping forward. Jake took a step back, and the others followed, their instincts screaming at them to run. But where, no matter which way they turned, another shadow lurked, shifting and waiting. "We're surrounded," Ethan breathed, but the creatures didn't move, didn't attack. They simply stood, watching, waiting. The teenagers' breathing grew ragged, their minds unraveling. The walls of the hospital felt like they were closing in, warping, twisting. The whispers in the air became words, but they were not spoken. They were thoughts, intrusive and alien, burrowing into their minds. "You were never meant to leave." Jake clutched his head, his knees buckling. The others followed suit, collapsing to the floor as their perception twisted and broke. The hallways around them stretched into infinity, then snapped back into suffocating narrowness. They weren't in the 21st century. They never had been. The hospital was still operational. The lights were still bright. The nurses still walked the halls, their crisp white uniforms unblemished. But there were no visitors, no kind faces. Only doctors with instruments that gleamed too brightly, and orderlies with hands too strong. And the patients. The teenagers looked down at themselves, at the ragged hospital gowns they now wore. Their reflections in the broken glass revealed not young adventurers, but wide-eyed, trembling patients, lost souls trapped in the asylum's grasp. They had never been explorers. They had always been here, always suffering, always lost. The lullaby continued, a song of sorrow and endless madness, welcoming them home. And the creatures, the ones they had feared so much, smiled.